Everyone is wrong about Treachery. Everyone. I'm lying because I only watched like 2 videos and I don't want to watch more because this is my video and my video's good. It's better. Basically every single thing I've watched about Treachery has said that P3 is going to release at the same time. I don't think that will happen because Akira has released the Prime Sanctums 7 months after the final layer of each act. I don't think that he's going to change that because 7 months feels specific, I guess. Now obviously I'm not just going to be talking about release dates the entire video because that would be a very boring video. I wouldn't even watch that. And which just says a lot because I watched a 4-hour video yesterday. It was good. I was so bored. Some people are theorizing that we're not going to get a king as Prime Soul, like how Minos and Sisyphus are both kings. So some people are saying like Lucifer or Hell itself. I don't think that'll happen. I think Ulysses is going to happen because in Through the Mirror, Broad, yeah, the 2nd level. That book you find in the Secret Path, the one that says, I see Ulysses upon the... oh my... The one that says, I see Ulysses frozen upon the wine darks, I see. That one. That definitely says Ulysses. And people aren't like cluing in that the wine dark high sea is Treachery. I'll talk a bit more about that. Basically, the Greeks never really referred to things with color. So wine dark doesn't mean red. It means luminosity. So wine dark means that it's just really dark. It's hard to see through. So wine dark just probably means that the sea is really deep or something. It might not be too obvious how this relates to Treachery, but in Dante's Inferno, the source material for ultrakill, Treachery is a frozen lake where the sinners are all trapped in ice, I think like neck deep. So it has to be deep enough to where you can't see all the way to the bottom. I feel like neck deep could do that if it's ice because of how much air is trapped in it. I'm not really saying that Treachery won't be red because Gluttony and Heresy are both red already. I feel like you do that and then just make the entire Treachery just like frozen blood or something. That sounds cool. It's like teasing V1 that he can't have any of that blood because it's frozen. I feel like that's good symbolism. Another thing to discuss would be alchemy, because the 2 Prime Souls, Minos and Sisyphus, have the 2 symbols already found on the blue and red skulls, which in alchemy represent Mercury and Sulfur, respectively, for both of them. The final skull we get to see is the white skull, that doesn't have the utilizations for decoration, but it has the salt symbol on it, so I'm not gonna assume that anyone knows anything about alchemy in my videos, so if you don't understand why Mercury, Sulfur, and Salt are related to each other anyway, for an alchemy trilogy called the Tria Prima, I think that's how it's... I don't see it being pronounced any other way, but Mercury represents the soul, Sulfur represents the spirit, and Salt represents the body. Minos and Sisyphus represent the first 2, pretty obviously, so Salt, body, it has to fit Ulysses somehow. Salt in alchemy is what's left after the soul and spirit are both gone. So the 3rd Prime Soul would have to be represented by someone who is metaphorically lost everything except for her body. Some people think that salt represents like preserving, that kind of thing, because salt can be used as a meat preservative or like curing, some things like that. That's very surface level. I don't think that's really what it'll fully represent in the game, but it can have some element maybe. So the final Prime isn't going to be someone who's like peaceful or like calm, because that's what some people think Salt represents, like stabilization, that kind of thing. But where in Act 3, especially Treachery, would you find someone who's peaceful? Especially since in Dante's Inferno, everything past Wrath is just constant, actual, active torture. I wouldn't be too happy about that. You probably wouldn't be either, but I'm not going to speak for you. Now, obviously, I'm only going to talk about one possibility, Ulysses. So, how does Ulysses represent Salt? I actually had to do some research about this. I've got mad about having to read, but I kind of wanted to make this video good-ish. My research is very surface level since I don't really care much about mythology. I don't find it very interesting. I don't like anything history related, but I sucked it up just for this video. So, as a young teen, Ulysses went boar hunting with his grandfather, which he was successful hunting a boar, but it sliced open his thigh really bad, leaving a giant like scar. So, just remember this for later, I guess. This specific adaptation that I'm reading is probably different from some other ones you've heard in the past, so... In this one, Ulysses went to Sparta himself to, I guess, have the hand for the Princess of Sparta or something. So all of Greece's top warriors are fighting, bloody, something, I don't know. Ulysses uses his smarts instead, though. So he struck a deal with the king to have a marriage with the younger cousin of the princess. This caused the oath of Darius, that's the king's name. I don't really care about that, so I didn't mention it sooner. The oath made it so that all the suitors had to defend the chosen husband if anyone abducted the princess, which happened. It caused the Trojan War, which led to Ulysses taking the Trojan horse, which, in Dante's Inferno, was bad enough to him going to fraud when he died. Though, after the Trojan War, Ulysses had to make the long journey home, which he was imprisoned for 7 years on Calypso's island. So, he cried tears, salty tears, into the salty ocean. Salt, salt, salt. Hey, do you see how this guy represents salt yet? Anyways, when he made it back, he was disguised, but his old nurse recognized him from the scar on his thigh. Ulysses recognized from his body, not his soul, not his spirit, his body, the wound he took as a teenager. When Ulysses' dad stepped down from the throne, Ulysses was now the king. He thought his life was now very pointless, since like none of Ithaca actually saw him for his past or who he was. He's just the person in charge. So, impulsively, he set sail. Eventually, I guess. And when he came back, in the specific adaptation that I was looking at, I guess, he was killed by his own son, who did not recognize him. Now, I obviously said that, like, Ulysses went to fraud for the Trojan horse. He's supposed to be in Treachery, so I don't know how they're gonna change that up, but they don't always just go only for the source material. I mean, Sisyphus wasn't even a thing in Dante's Inferno, I'm pretty sure, so obviously they changed some things up. I feel like Ulysses will most likely be the final kind soul in Act 3, and his tie to the physical body backs that up pretty well, I feel like. I mean, he wouldn't have been recognized if it wasn't for the scar on his leg, so he wasn't someone of conquest or war, he was just himself. So that's where, I guess, a preservative part of Salt could come in, because he's not peaceful, he's just always been himself, I guess. I'm not talking about the Yellow Arm. Anyways, Gabriel, the third one. I think a really good, like, symbolism of Gabriel for the final boss would just be having his boss part only say Gabriel. He's no longer the judge of hell, God's will, apostate of hate. He's just Gabriel now. I think the symbolism is actually really cool because it really shows how it's no longer about God's light. It's about how he himself is going to spend his last moments alive. And that's really interesting because that makes you think about the last fight is going to be against Gabriel, not any other role that he has played, just himself. I think at the end of the fight, Gabriel will offer himself to you. Not in that way, you freaks, but he would let you kill him without any resistance. He would bow his head to you and let you just kill him. This would represent him preferring to die to V1 rather than the light, so that his death wouldn't actually have any connection to the light at all. The final thing I want to talk about, though, is what comes after Treachery. Obviously, layer 10, right? I'm not joking. We have the prelude. That's just the mouth of hell. Why can't we have a finale? That's the entrance to Mount Purgatorio. See, I had something really, really bad written in the script, and I'm not doing that. Besides that, I actually do think that a finale could happen. I don't know what it would be about, but I guess Akita did say that the ending of the game would be very loose, just in case he wanted to make a sequel, if he wanted to. I don't think he should make a sequel. I feel like a DLC would be better if he does, because I don't think he wants to recode everything, first of all, and I don't want people to play the second game before the first game. And I guess that's just me being like a geek because I find the lore of the game really interesting, and I guess the average player doesn't really care about the lore because they just want dopamine rush. But also, if there was a DLC, it could just keep building on the difficulty in the game that's already presented, instead of going back to it being easy again. I feel like maybe a sequel could do that better, because I don't think there's really room for growth anymore unless there's more weapons. This is the part of the video where I promote myself. I love this part of the video. My favorite part. Obviously, listen to my music on Spotify, first of all. Subscribe to the channel, subscribe my Patreon, and if you really, really want to join my Discord, it hasn't been active in like eons, so maybe seeing that have people again, that would be pretty cool. Oh no.